Okay, welcome to A Night of Ghosts. My name is Daniel. I'll be the host for this very limited panel we got here tonight. It's a rainy Tuesday evening, and you know what? Sometimes it's just good to have a conversation with a few people. And tonight, I got a doozy for you guys. So I want to talk about the dreaded Ouija board. Ooh. You guys scared? I can tell. Just by looking at it. So the angle I want to go here is the idea of the board itself. Now, anybody's ever been on the walks, you've heard me talk about it. I've pushed the use of a Ouija board as a communication device since starting with Haunted Hamilton back in the day and then leading into the ghost walks, and I've always found it to be quite effective. And now how I see it is not what the horror movies show. The horror movies show it as being evil, that if you use it, you're going to get possessed and your head's going to spin in circles, like from The Exorcist, or axes are going to come off the wall and fly at your head. Like that's the horror movies say that, and I think that's one of the main reasons, starting from The Exorcist on, that they've gotten such a bad reputation. So how I see the Ouija board is as a divination tool. So if you use the divining rods, or if you've used the pendulum, those are also divination tools that use the energy of one single person. So if you're not a psychic, you might not get the best results. But the Ouija board is the only divination tool that can combine multiple energies at the same time. So people all working with the same device. The original idea started as automatic writing back in China, like 3,000 years ago. And then the planchet was invented. So basically the planchet had a little hole at the top, and you stuck a pencil in, so everybody would touch the planchet and it would write words out. And then in the late 1800s, the Ouija board that we all know, the talking board that was invented by the inventor's name escapes me, but
William
it was
Feld?
No, William Feld wasn't the inventor. There was somebody before him. He kind of stole, air quotes, the idea and then patented it. So it was his. So then he created the talking board that we all know today, which is a good improvement, right? So you have the planchet, instead of having a pencil, now it can just point at letters. So the idea behind the Ouija board is not evil, but is the board evil itself? So that's the question we're going to broach today, and I have some personal experiences. I think a couple of you at the table here have at least witnessed or tried, and we'll see where this goes. Worst case, we'll just talk about the weather.
Which is creepy too.
It is. Yeah, you know what? It's a perfect evening. Just to set the scene, because we're not filming this evening. We're basically sitting on the second floor of the Pheasant Plucker in a dim room. I got all the lights down for effect. It's raining outside. It's just a real creepy feel. I think it's perfect. And for some reason, we kept hearing a banging from the back corner. I don't know if I went downstairs to get a drink, and I looked into the stairwell. There's nobody there, so I'm not sure where the banging's coming from. But we'll just leave it at that. See if anything else happens. So, how about I'll start with you, Ian.
Well, certainly I don't believe that the board is evil, as you put it. It's been used as a communication tool for years and years in traditional seances. I believe it pulls what energy that you got around you into it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because we're not, most of us are not accomplished psychics. I've seen psychics use the board. Two that we've worked with in the past I've mentioned before as Kate and Michelle. Kate was on one of the original podcasts, and I watched them, just the two of them. And they were accomplished, right? They had two Ouija boards, and they had one hand each on one planchet and the other hand each on the other planchet. And I remember it was the night before we were doing a major investigation. It might have been the Merritt House in St. Catharines. But they were asking questions of the boards, and the planchets took off, went off the board, and watched. Like, I wouldn't have believed it unless I saw it. It was making them into shapes. So the plants would like cross their arms and make them into these intricate shapes on the table. And the whole time they're just laughing along like it's the normal thing. And I'm sitting in the back like ready to piss myself because I'm like, this is not normal.
We certainly all have that psychic energy within us. It's just the fact that very few of us are trained to know how to use it properly.
Or have built it.
Exactly.
Or maybe shut it down over the years.
And as far as perhaps spirit energy actually coming through the board, because of Hollywood movies, so many people are trained these days to think it's all demonic energy coming through the board. And myself personally, I'm not a religious person. I don't consider myself very spiritual. I don't believe in demons. And investigating the paranormal, as I've been doing for the last number of years, I've never encountered anything myself that is going to lead me so far to believe in demons. So it's the whole Hollywood exorcist. And if there is negative energy coming through the board, I believe, as we all have the energy within us, if you're a good, kind, decent person in life, that's how you're going to be once you transition into your spirit energy. If you're an evil, nasty person, you're going to take that trait with you. So I feel any negative energy that comes through the Ouija board would be from negative human spirits, not demonic or anything like that.
It's an interesting thought. Now you mentioned The Exorcist, talking about, I mentioned it as well. What we mean basically is like the 1970s movie with Linda Blair and the main role. If you don't remember the movie or you haven't watched it, there's the scene before she's possessed. She uses a Ouija board. And I read some notes on this, and I think what the director was trying to go for, because part of that scene was originally cut and then added back in a later version, that they said the storyline had the little girl on Ritalin. So they said because she was on Ritalin, that the demon that came through the Ouija board was able to take advantage of that. So The Exorcist did affect a lot of people. I remember back when it first came out, there was stories that they have to have ambulances outside the theaters, right, in case people were passing out, because they've never seen anything like that before, right? And they're all very religious. And it's like the scene. Well, Linda Blair was what, 15?
Something like that, yeah.
15 years old, and the things that she did on camera was just like, wouldn't be allowed today for a girl her age.
It was very graphic.
Yeah, so that stuck in people's minds, and I bet you the mothers and fathers and even grandparents, I guess we're far enough along to say that, who saw the movie and were shocked by it, passed that down to their children. And then I do believe The Exorcist had a big role in freaking people out when it comes to the Ouija board.
Well, I think it still does, because you see polls on the internet as, what's the top 10 scary Halloween movies? And The Exorcist is always listed at number 1 all-time scariest movie.
I wonder how that would hold up. I know you don't want to make this a podcast about The Exorcist.
Oh, but I don't mind. This is Aiden, everybody, by the way.
Hello. I waved at the microphone. I wonder how it would hold up with people today, because I saw The Exorcist really, really young. Because I had heard, I'd always been really interested in movies and horror movies especially, and I'd always heard it was the scariest movie ever made, and it was my grandparents being strict Roman Catholics. That was the one movie that they were like, you absolutely cannot see. So I was like, well, I absolutely have to see The Exorcist. So it was on TV, and I started watching it, and I was like, this is really boring. Now, mind you, I was like 8 years old, and it does take a while for anything supernatural to happen in the movie. And it just, to the point that I almost turned it off. But the one thing I took away from the first, before the vomiting, head spinning, was the Ouija board. And that's kind of what got me started using a Ouija board. Which is that was the one scary part of the first part of the scariest movie ever made back then that I really took with me. Now, it's funny because years later, when they re-released The Exorcist for the 25th anniversary or whatever, in theaters, I got to see it on the big screen. And not only was it terrifying, like a completely different movie, but as a more adult person, the family drama was almost just as terrifying as the demonic possession. Like watching Ellen Burstyn trying to care for her daughter, and like you're saying, Linda Blair is doing all this crazy stuff that no child should be doing on screen, and like watching just this family and the mom experiencing this, her daughter doing this stuff that no child should do. Like it's just as affecting as the actual supernatural exorcism horror stuff in the movie. Like,
there's a realism to it because of the fact that she's so young. It's not the type of situation where the TV show on Netflix. This is really off topic, but I'll say it anyway. So like there was it's called Easy, and one of the episodes had this girl in it who was playing a teenager in high school and dating another teenager in high school, teenager air quotes, and my fiance was like, she seems very, it's like she's dating a young boy, and I was like, yeah, it's weird. So I looked up the age of the actress playing a 16-year-old, and she was 27. And I'm like, okay, this is what they're doing in a lot of the shows now. They're getting these adults to play those roles, and it just takes away from that realism that the Exorcist have. But you mentioned, so when you were how old you saw it for the first time?
I was probably like 8.
So you saw so 8. So you probably didn't understand some of the stuff. But then when you're older, you get the more nuance of what they're trying to push. Yeah,
the two things that really stuck with me watching it as an 8-year-old, other than like the bombastic special effect stuff, which would stick with anybody, was that the Ouija board for sure. But the second thing was that being raised in a Roman Catholic household, we would go to church every Saturday night. And the next time I went to church after watching The Exorcist, I was like, I think I'm afraid of Catholicism. Like, I was just looking around at the church and the statues and the religious icons, and I just like got a chill, and I was like, this is terrifying to me now. I don't know, that's probably not the purpose of The Exorcist, but I was like, I think I'm just as scared of The Exorcist as I was of the devil.
Well, you took the opposite angle with all of that. You said that it didn't scare you from the Ouija board; it pushed you towards it.
Yeah,
and then you're like more afraid of the religion. But I tell you, as a kid growing up Roman Catholic, it was scary. Like they would show me books. I still remember those books with really well drawn pictures of like John the Baptist when he had his head cut off. This is a little kid's book in elementary school, and it's a picture of John the Baptist's severed head on a silver platter being presented. And I was like, I remember seeing it. It's like disturbed me for a week.
Yeah, which is funny because if you were caught reading like a comic book that had the exact same thing, but it was, I don't know, Iron Man holding somebody else's head, they would take that away from you and you would never get it back. But if it's a religious picture, it's like, no, it's fine. It's history.
That's well, I agree with you, but first off, Iron Man wouldn't do that.
Well, no.
But I know what you mean. It's almost like what's the word I'm looking for? It's a double standard.
Yeah,
like they're trying to teach you the values of Christianity, and that includes all the violent teaching as well.
And bring that around full circle. This is completely true. So I was an altar boy until I was about 12 years old. And I was fired from being an altar boy.
What?
I know. And the reason I was fired, again, completely true, just pure luck. So I realized, when you're an altar boy in a Roman Catholic church, you can, or altar girl, you can either carry the candles or carry the cross. When you carry the candles, you sit at either side of the priest and you help the priest all through Mass. But if you carry the cross, you sit in a separate little pew on the side and you can just do whatever do Mass for a church. You don't have to help anybody. You lead the procession. So when I was about 9 or 10, I realized that's the job for me. Like I have one task and that's it. So what I would do, so as a very heavy reader, is I would hide whatever book I was reading in the little side pew, and then I would carry the cross and I would go to the side pew and I'd put it behind a hymnal and I would just catch up on an hour of reading through Mass, and it was awesome. And I did this for years without an issue, and then the one time I finally got caught, and I wasn't being a jerk or anything, just the book I happened to be reading was William Peter Blatty's The Exorcist. So the priest comes up to me after church and he says, you're really into this was all in French, I went to a French church. He's like, you're really interested in the hymnal. And I probably said something trying to cover my ass, like, oh, it's interesting. It's like poems almost. I want to, And he's like, what were you really reading? And I was like, oh, no, nothing, the hymnal. And he walked over to the side pew and pulled out the book, and it was The Exorcist. Busted. And he said, you're never coming back in the church again. Wow. And I said, what about forgiveness? And then I definitely wasn't coming back in the church. I had to find another church. It was a whole big scandal.
I was
about it.
surprised that I thought you were going to tell me like you burned down the church or something. I mean, just because you read a book.
Well,
that
it
they
was The
didn't agree with.
Exorcist,
Well,
which
still.
is
That's
yeah.
considering what the book was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But see, I don't know why they're so against this book. I know this topic's getting a little off the rails.
Well, of course, I mean,
but why are they
the
against
church
it?
has exorcists.
Well, they do.
You know,
It's a good representation as far as I know, and